are an educator. You've been in the public school system for how many years?
Mostly private school, but about 33 years. Yes.
And you have two sons, the both of you. Joshua is 23.
Yes.
And Caleb, who is 22. Both of your sons have been diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder called Friedreich's ataxia.
That's correct.
Can you help us understand what is that?
Yeah. So it's a neuromuscular disease. So basically, their DNA sequence is lacking some coding that tells their bodies to produce the right building blocks for their muscles. So they appear normal at first. Normally, symptoms don't show up till late childhood, early teens. And that was the case for the boys, but their symptoms were really mild and not super noticeable till they got to be late teens. So they were only diagnosed 2.5 years ago, which is a little late. But it explains a lot of health struggles that our oldest son Joshua had before the diagnosis. So, I mean, their health issues started long before the diagnosis. It took a long time to get to the actual diagnosis of what was going on.
Neuromuscular part.
Mm-hmm.
That involves what?
It involves coordination, mobility. It affects everybody that is related to muscles. So it affects their heart, it affects their digestive system. It can affect simple things like swallowing, speaking, move around properly is very challenging. Balance.
First started showing up in Joshua. He is 1 year older than Caleb, but that's where you first, looking back.
Yes, now we know why Josh was having heart issues that the doctors couldn't figure out where it was coming from and what was causing it. So, Josh started having seizures as well when he was the end of 6th grade, but those were not related to the Friedreich's ataxia. Unfortunately, he just got a bonus disease. So, but amidst that, we discovered that he had some issues with his heart when they were doing testing for some of the other things. Yeah. So then he started having some really serious heart issues. He had they're not heart attacks, but sort of. So basically, his heart was under such stress that he's got scar tissue all over his heart because it just was not functioning properly. And the pediatric cardiologist is the one who suggested we do genetic testing because she could not figure out the cause of what was happening with his heart. It should not have been happening. Then when he aged out of pediatric care and into adult care, shortly after that is when COVID hit. And then, there was just a lot of complications and a lot of delays, and the genetic testing was never done for a long, long time.
Wow.
While his brother Caleb started developing more symptoms, he was having a terrible time. He kept losing his balance. He was having trouble walking.
Wow.
His speech we started to notice issues with his speech, like he was almost sort of slurring his speech. Ended up getting a referral to a neurologist who specialized in movement disorders. And that neurologist is the one who diagnosed him first. And then hearing about Joshua's issues with his heart, he asked to test Joshua as well. And that's how we found out that Josh also had this exact same disease. It's very, very rare. There are no treatment options in Canada at all. Very devastating diagnosis. It's progressive, it's degenerative. So that means their life expectancy is significantly shortened because eventually parts of their body that require muscular movement aren't going to be able to function anymore, like their hearts, their breathing, stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a devastating diagnosis to hear, that's for sure. And then to have both of your children diagnosed with it I think the biggest thing is that our family chose to meet this head on as a family,
Okay.
and stick together. That was our biggest goal: is how can we help each other through this process? And this isn't just a season. This is going to be a very long-term thing. So how do we play the long game together and make sure that we're all still okay?
Wow. You guys have gotten to the place where you either do or you don't, and you're going to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a mindset. You really have to choose to fight and do everything you can, and to try to stick together as a family. That's the big thing for us, is that, we all kind of, like, especially when we were midst of crisis, when Josh was in the hospital, preparing for brain surgery to try to alleviate the seizures, is when he was diagnosed. And just 2 months before that, when he was in the hospital another time, um, is when Caleb was diagnosed. So that was a really rough year. But we just chose to come together as a family, figure out, okay, what can we do? Who's going to do what? And just work together to try to get through this. And after surgery, Josh's brain surgery, he was paralyzed for quite a long time. His body had to relearn how to move, which, when you have a neuromuscular disease and they take out part of your brain that tells your body to move, they weren't actually sure what was going to happen to him. Josh basically was told eventually his heart's just going to give out. And probably before he was about 21 years old. That was the first time somebody told Josh, you're probably going to die really young. And then, of course, the second time was when they got diagnosed with the disease.
Yes.
This disease seriously impacts your life expectancy. Josh and Dustin was there with Josh at an appointment, and he's the one who said, you really need to prepare that this is probably what's going to happen. So he was very kind, Dustin said, but really didn't have any answers as to how to help Josh's heart. Like, we tried a bunch of different medications. There were so many horrendous side effects that made Josh almost not function. Like, he just couldn't even barely live. And at one point he just said, I'm not doing this. So he kind of weaned himself off of the cardiac medicine. It wasn't helping anyways. Miraculously, literally miraculously, we had a connection through a not traditional type of, or Western type of medicine, doctor, who was able to prescribe some alternative medications that actually helped Josh's heart. Somebody that Dustin knew through years of work, had gone to see this doctor and he heard about what was happening with Joshua, and he said, I really think this doctor could help you guys. And so we made the trip all the way out to Saskatoon, went to see him, and sure enough, he was able to really help. He at that time said, I believe there's something going on with the mitochondria in Josh's body, which is exactly what Friedreich's ataxia is. There's an issue with the mitochondria.
Wow.
So without any testing, like traditional testing, he was able to determine there's something wrong with Josh's mitochondria. And he was giving him, natural sort of medications that could assist with that. And Josh's heart is basically functioning like a normal heart now. It's pretty neat. They just he and Caleb just had some more cardiac testing this summer. And the cardiologist said, Josh, your heart looks good. He said, yeah, you've got scar tissue on your heart. That'll always be there. But in terms of disease negatively affecting his heart, in terms of his heart function, right now it's not really affecting his heart function at this point much.
What about for Caleb? What are his symptoms, and where's he at right now?
Well, Caleb started, like, when he was a young child, he was extremely athletic and coordinated, like his dad. He learned to ride a bike super easy. We put him in the water and he just kind of naturally knew how to swim. When Caleb started to go from that to struggling to walk properly, and he was constantly losing his balance, and we couldn't figure out what was going on, Josh and Dustin and Caleb were all in karate. And Caleb just was starting to struggle. He just could not keep his balance. Every time he had to stand on one foot or change direction, which you do a lot in karate, he would fall down.
Wow.
And it was really frustrating for him. He finally just quit karate after a while. He just said, "This, I can't do it." We couldn't figure out what was going on. That was kind of, I think, looking back, the first symptom that we noticed
Okay.
was different than when he was younger. He just kind of
Wow.
had this weird, like, sort of sway as he walked. And we kept saying, just walk properly. And he said, I am walking properly. Like he said, I'm walking as best as I can walk. He knew something was wrong with his body. He could feel it.
Point, his brother is sick
Yeah. With
with seizures and heart
Yeah.
issues that are very concerning. Deb's knowing something's off with me.
Yes. And honestly, it was a little bit, I wouldn't say ignored, but it was a little bit sort of pushed to the side because Josh's issues were so acute. I think there was a bit of a delay in necessarily pursuing what was going on with Caleb as well, because we were just so absorbed with what was happening with Josh. He was in and out of the hospital. I mean, Josh missed more of grade 12 than he was actually present in school.
Okay.
His absent number was slightly bigger than his present number. For graduation, he upgraded a little bit. He took a year off because he had the brain surgery and, a lot of complications. But yeah, since then he's doing quite well. But yeah, so Caleb really kind of was a little bit on the back burner at that point. He was he grew up in many ways really fast. He became a lot more independent and responsible for himself. And he kind of took on the role of caring for his brother.